With the recent trade of Jaylen Waddle to the Denver Broncos, a lot of fans are wondering, is his replacement in this draft? Well, we are going to go over my top 15 wide receiver big board player analysis. We'll go in depth on all of them, including some all 22 and some film on the top 5. Hey, could the rumblings regarding Makai Lemon be real, and are they justified when you break down the film? We got a lot to discuss, a lot to talk about. Let's get into this. What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we're back here for another one. Appreciate each and every one of you coming through. Please do me the huge favor, smash the like button and subscribe if you are new. We are 10 away from 19,000, meaning we're about 1,010 away from 20,000 in that big giveaway I've been promising. And listen, just smashing the like button and subscribing goes a long way on these type of videos because, you know, XOS Digital Sports and YouTube, they're at it. These videos get demonetized instantly. So, but hey, listen, never sacrifice the quality of the content. I'm here for the love of the game at the end of the day. So we're going to get into it. You know, a lot of people were a little shocked that Makai Lemon was, a top 30 visit for the Miami Dolphins. You'll see I'm really high on him. He's explosive, and I get it. At the time, Jaylen Waddle wasn't, early talks about Makai Lemon early on in the process, like in the combine and stuff. Jaylen Waddle was still on the team, so it didn't make sense. And then it felt like kind of a redundant thing. But now with Waddle gone, hey, if they believe in Makai Lemon, but I still tend to believe that John Eric Sullivan's background, his father being one of the best receiver coaches ever, they feel like they have the code cracked. And I feel like you got to be super special in the first round. And I think if Tyson didn't have the injury history, he could maybe fit that mold, but he does. And so therefore I don't think he will. I just don't see a guy, I just see options on day 2 that make more sense. So now is Waddle's replacement in this draft. I mean, some people are really high on Casey Concepcion. I guess, if you like drops and some speed, then yeah, there's his replacement. I know fans were frustrated with Waddle's drops. Concepcion, 7 drops over, in each of the last 2 years for a total of 14 over the last 2 years. So I just don't think Concepcion is the first, listen, what's crazy about this big board too is 15. I think the lowest grade I have is a 4th rounder. And it's like the last player it's like the 15th player. When you look at my wide receiver board, I want you to think about it that 1 through 4, I have first round grades on. 5 through 9, I have second round grades on. 10 to 14, I have third round grades on. And then my 15th, I have a top of the 4th, late 3rd grade on. So it's a deep class, man. It's a deep class when you break it down, in my opinion. So, anyways, let's not waste much more time. I really want to dive into this. People are wondering if the replacement for Waddle is in this draft. I don't think the immediate replacement is here. There's guys in here where I think year 1 can contribute as 3s or 2s, and by year 2, year 3, you can start to see them blossoming into eventual or 1s right away. I think I don't know. It's a really high ceiling class And we'll talk about it. We'll break it down. We'll get into it. So, let's start off with my honorable mentions of this class. And number 15 for me is Malachi Fields. Probably my first controversial take on this list, but I'll explain in depth, starting with the stuff I like with Fields. His measurables: 6'4", 5'8", 218 pounds, ideal length and size to his frame. Listen, I also like his current functional play strength. It really shows up at the catch point. He has a nice size catch radius, sure hands with only 3 drops over the last 2 seasons. He's a good route runner, can fit that X role for a team. Knows how to use his physicality, hands, and short area quickness to get clean releases off the line of scrimmage. So why am I so low? I think he's a below average athlete that is going to really struggle to separate at the next level. There's no twitch, explosiveness. He runs a 4.61 40, isn't very agile. I just don't know if the ceiling is much higher than a, top end wide receiver 3, or maybe if everything works out, a low end wide receiver 2. I don't know if I see that. So I got like a late 3rd, early 4th round grade on Malachi. Now, Jacoby, I got a 3rd round grade on him. So now everyone from here on out is a 3rd round grade. So, or higher. So Jacoby, I got him at 14, just over 6'4", 200 pounds, 4.47, 40 speed. Great size to his frame, really good athlete to go along with that. But I feel he's overlooked because of that USC counterpart, Makai Lemon. He's got a pretty wide catch radius. He can look downright dominant on some 50-50 contested reps on film. Knows how to use his body control on route stems to create separation with head fakes, double moves. He tracks the ball really well. Some reps look like his hands have stickum leaking from the pores, and Lane loves to get his nose dirty as a blocker. Now, concentration drops are an issue for him. For as dominant as he can look at the catch point, he needs to win more like that. He's not consistent enough nearly with it. He's a good athlete that's quite agile, but it just doesn't come off as explosive or uber twitchy. So I think at the next level, he's going to be like a good athlete. He's not going to be a great athlete or elite athlete, 13, Antonio Williams, sleeper here. And I could see these guys going, late 2nd. I mean, these are good players here. Antonio Williams, 5'11", 5'8", 187 pounds, runs a 4.41 40, can play the boundary, but probably projects best out of the slot, can contribute on special teams. I think he's a high IQ player, whether you see him finding a soft spot in coverage or how he gets open for his QB when the play breaks down. He's also a pretty good route runner, sinks his hips well at the top of his stem, sharp out of his breaks, uses jab steps. His twitch is pretty good. He uses that twitch to sell his routes too through the stem. He's got very reliable hands, can win at the catch point when contested, and he can stretch a defense vertically if you ask him to. Doesn't have the ideal size or length to be a consistent boundary option outside of lining up as a Z now and then, I think. Has some injuries the last couple of years, must fill out his frame with bulk strength, especially to improve as a blocker. And for all that 4.4 speed, he isn't really a big yak or home run threat on film. So, number 12, Zachariah Branch. Now, here's where we start to get high 3rd, late 2nd guys. No, for real. Skylar Bell and Zachariah Branch, I would take them early 3rd, late 2nd. Now we're starting to get into the guys getting into the 2nd. So Zachariah Branch runs a 4.35 40-yard dash. He's 5'9", 177. He boasts a 38 vert, a 10'5" broad, a 2.52 20-yard split, and a 1.5 10-yard split, all of which are very good. And after transferring from USC to Georgia, he posted single season career highs with 811 receiving yards and 6 receiving touchdowns on 81 receptions. He's so elusive and shifty with great agility. He's not just a burner. He forces missed tackles with his surprising strength and ability to play through contact for the frame that he actually possesses. He creates space very easily. He can obliterate defenses after the catch and seems to always find a way to get open. Now, the biggest question mark is, can he be more than a screen merchant and develop his route tree to be dependent on more traditional wide receiver usage? 48% of his targets came behind the line of scrimmage. That said, he will probably be limited to the slot with rotational snaps as a Z, given his size. Questions about how he'll handle physical, longer corners, especially in press at the next level, will be justified due to his size until he proves people otherwise. So, at 11, Skylar Bell. He came down to the final four at the wide receiver position when putting my man crush list together for the draft, along with Ted Hurst, Bryce Lance, and Chris Brazel, because I love Skylar's game and upside. He exploded in 2025 with 1,278 yards, 13 touchdowns on 101 receptions. He's 5'11", 5'8" inches tall, 192 pounds, runs a 4.40, has a 41-inch vert, an 11-foot, 1-inch broad jump, and, has sure hands. He has a 3.8% drop rate in 2025 on 141 targets. He's quick off the line of scrimmage as well as out of his breaks on his routes, can separate with his quickness or nuanced route running ability. He can make the catch through traffic or when contested. He's a high-level ball tracker, really good contact balance, can create after the catch with 834 yards after the catch just last year alone. And he's a small guy, but he's feisty and he's a willing blocker. Size will probably limit him to the slot at the next level. Doesn't have a wide catch radius due to his size, length as well. Needs to bulk up the frame. Might be too light against press consistently at the next level. His testing was more explosive than his film, athletic wise. So you'd like to see him break more tackles with that athleticism than he does on film. Just utilize it more, So now we're getting into my second round guys, and Denzel Boston, I'm lower on him. I got a late second round. Listen, like Fields, I'm lower on Boston than most, but he still cracked my top 10. He's 6'3", 5'8", 212 pounds, great length to his frame, fits the X role for an NFL offense, has a wide catch radius, had a drop rate of 3.1% in 2025, along with a contested catch rate, winning percentage of 76.9%. Like, that's really, really good. So that's impressive. So needless to say, there's a lot to like with him. He's a handful for defenders to bring down at times. He's a willing and capable blocker, and he uses pace, tempo on his routes to get open in space. His body control is very good. So is his ability to track the ball in the air. He can beat you up the perimeter or over the middle of the field. And Boston is a pretty nuanced route runner. But a massive red flag for me was him not wanting to run his 40 at his pro day, which tells me his agent didn't think he could do much better than his mid 4.5 range most projected him to run. He's not a yak threat or a big-time playmaker after the catch. He disappeared against big-time competition like Will Johnson 2024 or Ohio State and Oregon in 2025. Release package, especially against press, needs to improve, and that lack of twitch, explosiveness, and overall athleticism may force him to have to win more physically at the next level as opposed to being a natural separator who gets open. And there's only so much of a ceiling to that type of player. You're going to have to separate either with your route running or your explosiveness and athleticism, or physical at the catch point and in the air. But how much are you going to be able to win physical and catch point at the air? You're going to have to find other ways to separate and create plays, and that just seems like the only way he can win. So we'll see. Now, number 9, Omar Cooper Jr. Now I got a mid second round, grade on Omar. I'm high on him. He's a hair over 6 foot, 196, runs a 4.47 40, 37-inch vertical. He's coming off a career year in Indiana where he had 937 yards and 13 touchdowns on 69 receptions, along with only 3 drops and a 50% contested catch win rate to go along with the national championship. What I like about his game is how dangerous he can be on the short level and intermediate level after the catch. As long as you get the ball into his hands, as a 52.7% of his receiving yardage came after the catch in 2025. He can beat man with his route running savviness as his cuts and breaks are sharp in his routes, or he can exploit soft spots against zone with his spatial awareness. He's the type of competitor who never takes it down off and fights for every last yard on the field. He's agile and elusive, which makes him hard to bring down for tacklers. The footwork is clean. He has good short area bursts that he uses in his release off the line of scrimmage to get clean initial separation. The catch radius was bigger than I expected it to be when I watched him, and he's got high level body control and balance. Now, the right route tree still has room to expand. As you can make the argument, he was kind of a screen merchant at times. He's battled a few injuries the last 3 seasons. His size and length isn't anything to write home about right now. And he found most of his success primarily out of the slot. And he doesn't have high-end athleticism or home run speed on tape, contrary to that 4.47 40. That said, I'm a fan of him. I see the upside in him. Now, number 8, we're getting into guys here who are Chris Bell, Bryce Lance, and Casey Concepcion. To me, should go at the top of the second round. They should go in the first 15 picks of that second round. These guys. And Chris Bell, he's a frustrating eval, because the trades, including what most projected to be a 4.3 to a low 4.4 40 time, are all there on film. But his ACL tear in 2025 prevented him from showcasing what his physical traits at the combine could have been. And that will probably impact his draft stock a bit, as well as he was attacking DBs a lot more aggressively in 2024 on film, I thought, to compromise them a lot more than he did in 2025. 6'1", 7/8, 222 pounds. Bell, he's got flexibility as an X, Z, and flanker option for an offense. He can stretch a defense vertically on any given play with his ability to stack defenders after stemming his route to create separation. And, he just has a really great blend of size and speed. I love it. Bell is strong at the catch point, he can win when he's contested, doesn't drop the ball very often. He's a really good route runner who will make defenders pay if they play too far off of him. He's good in space, whether it's his understanding of angles or using his pure raw talent to make a defender miss. Has a nice wide catch radius, tracks the ball well, has good balance to play through contact, and he loves the physical aspects of the game, whether it's running through a defender with a ball in his hands or when he's tasked as a blocker. Footwork, especially with his releases off the line of scrimmage, needs to be cleaner. It can slow down his get off. As explosive as he is, especially straight line wise, agility wise, when moving laterally, he's kind of average. Route tree wasn't expanded at Louisville, but like I said earlier, the stuff he did have to run, he ran it pretty well. And, he doesn't exploit those soft spots in coverage as much as I'd like him to. And his breaks out of his routes, they need to be, they need to be a little bit sharper at times, I think. I would say just clean that up. But you can see it. You can see all the potential there with him, with that size, the speed, the athleticism. You do get routes where you see the sharpness out of the break and you're like, oh, but then you get the routes where they're just not crisp enough. So we'll see. Number 7, I don't know, this is probably going to be controversial. I got Bryce Lance as high and Denzel Boston not low, but I'm sorry. He's one of the wide receivers on this list who made the final cut as a man crush of mine, along with Chris Brazell. Lance, who is the brother of quarterback Trey Lance, is the type of wide receiver I think John Eric Sullivan will love. He's a great athlete with great size, a high ceiling, and can be had outside of the first round of the NFL draft. He's 6'3", 204 pounds, runs a 4.340 dash, along with a 2.54 20-yard split, a 1.49 10-yard split, has a 41.5-inch vertical, an 11-foot 1-inch broad jump. But the most important thing is that explosiveness, twitchiness, and high-level athleticism is all over the film. He can stretch a defense vertically in the blink of an eye. He posted back-to-back 1,000-plus yard seasons along with 25 receiving touchdowns over the last 2 years. 17 of those 25 receiving touchdowns came in 2024 alone. This guy's explosive. What's even more impressive is he didn't need, anywhere near 100 receptions a season to get those 25 receiving touchdowns over the last 2 years and those back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. All right? I mean, he only had 51 receptions in 2025 and 75 receptions in 2024. Like, Lance makes plays at the catch point. He's so strong there, even when contested, as he's hauled in 24 contested catches on 38 contested targets the last 2 seasons. He's got reliable hands that keep drops minimal. He's a really high-level ball tracker, which is highlighted by some great snags on overthrows due to, he had poor and accurate play at quarterback at North Dakota State at times the last few years. Let's be honest with ourselves. Peyton was growing into himself. Cam Miller, come on. He has a wide catch radius, has great body control, will sell his routes with jab steps and such to create separation beyond just his explosiveness. I think he's a better route runner than some give him credit for, too. That said, I do think his route tree needs to expand. He's going to need to be more active at the line of scrimmage, especially with his hands, to beat press consistently at the next level, instead of just relying on that speed and athleticism. So his release package does need to expand too. But, I mean, you look at Miami and they got Tolbert. Oh, perfect, right? He's willing as a blocker, but his functional strength needs to continue to be built out, not just for blocking, but some reps on film. You can struggle through his stem or at the top of his route with a more physical, long DB. So, but man, the upside is huge on him. And, listen, I don't like player comps, but I get the whole, I get it all. I get the Christian Watson. I get how people see that in this game. Number 6 for me, KC Concepcion. Concepcion is, just under 5'11", 188 pounds. And it felt like he would be sort of a redundant selection for a team like the Dolphins when Waddle was on the roster. But, that's all changed now. That has all changed. And now adding a playmaker like this at wide receiver, it just makes a ton of sense. In 2025, after transfer portaling from NC State to Texas A&M, Concepcion broke out for the most receiving yards he's had in a season, which was 919, along with 9 touchdowns. Concepcion may not have tested, but oh boy, on film, he's the definition of explosive. He can stretch the defense vertically, uses agility and elusiveness in open space to make a man miss or take a screen to that house. He's a pretty good route runner, nuanced with how he runs those routes. Got a pretty expanded tree too, and he will attack you with double moves and through and such through that stem. He beat press with his pretty solid release package, where he knows how to use everything from his hands down to his really solid footwork. He can exploit soft spots against zone and off man with his high football IQ, and that IQ also shows up with how he's aware enough to always come back to the quarterback if the play breaks down or he comes to the end of his route. So for his size, he's very good in contested catch situations in 2025, showing off strong hands and some physicality for his frame. He's such a space creator, whether it's his first step off his relief, how quickly he can stack a DB, so much short area burst that he's a headache to deal with underneath. He can offer you slot Z flexibility as well as some returner upside on special teams. Now, his size and strength is obviously going to be something to watch at the next level. Not going to offer you much as a blocker. Concentration drops can be a serious issue as they are evident on film the last few years. I believe he had 7 in each of the last 2 years, so 14 over the last 2 years, 7 in each year. Body catching can lead to drops for him too. And there's just not much length to his frame, and that limits his catch radius. But I like him. I see the upside. He's a playmaker, but he's another guy. Never going to be a 1, I don't think. I just don't know if I could be wrong. I just don't know if I see that. Honestly. Now, let's get into my top receivers. And I'm starting at number 5 with Ted Hurst. It's probably going to be controversial to have Hurst this high, let alone ahead of Concepcion. But I believe in the traits, the ideal size, length, frame, ceiling, and most of all the tape of Ted Hurst, who is your prototypical X at the next level. Through those traits, allow a ton of positional flexibility. Those traits allow a ton of positional flexibility outside of the X role and mismatch potential for defenses. I gave you a comp earlier. Man, I see some George Pickens in Ted Hurst's game. He's 6'4", 206. He runs a 4.42 40 at that size. 11-foot, 3-inch broad jump. He's coming off his first 1,000+ yard season where he also had 6 receiving touchdowns, but has suffered from god-awful quarterback play. How badly, you ask? He has the second highest uncatchable targets rate in this class at 29.3% of his targets. They were deemed uncatchable. He's actually quite good of a route runner. Sunburst and acceleration. He stems his routes well and can stack DBs. He's dangerous after the catch with about a third of his 2025 yardage coming as yak. He moves very fluid, whether running a route or an open space, which you love to see at that size. Great footwork and solid release package off the line of scrimmage. Helps him create separation immediately especially on underneath routes where he has to cross the DB's face. So he's got a pretty sizable catch radius, tracks the ball well, whether it's over his shoulder or to his back shoulder. Great contact balance, willing and capable as a blocker, loves the physical aspect of the game, doesn't shy away from it at the catch point. You know, he's got a 61% contested catch win rate the last 2 seasons. So he's got to continue to build the strength in that frame, because he's not breaking through a ton of tackles after the catch, or, you know, when he has to fight through a stiff physical jam, he's going to need that strength. So he needs to continue to build it out. He needs to clean up the drops. The hips aren't always as smooth as you'd like in and out of the breaks. And it's also going to be a significant jump in competition for him. And also guys like, you know, Lance. So number 4, I got Chris Brazell. So along with Lance, Brazell is the other man crush at wide receiver in this class, you know, with those two edging out Hurst and Skylar Bell. I keep telling everyone to scout the player, you know, not the helmet, as I know with QBs and wide receivers recently, Tennessee Vols aren't exactly at the top of the sure thing list, but I feel Brazell is going to be the one to break that narrative. 6'4", 198 pounds with legit 4.37 speed. Brazell offers you flexibility as an XZ or flanker in an offense. He's so quick and explosive on film with the ability to be a legit vertical stretcher or threaten the underneath and intermediate levels if needed, you know? So with his ability to separate off of speed or as a really good nuanced route runner, you know, he understands route tempo very well when throttling down or getting in and out of his breaks, and he moves smoothly with very fluid feet and hips. He tracks the ball well downfield. The 2025 film showed more reliable hands, which only led to 2 drops on 86 targets. And he isn't really susceptible to bad body catching, as it's instinctual for him to rely on those hands. He's physical at the catch point, and Brazell is one of the most elite catch radiuses of this class, in my opinion. Brazell's body control is top tier. What I also love is, look what he did against some big competition in 2025. He destroyed Georgia for 177 yards and 3 touchdowns. While I also thought he was very good against Alabama and Oklahoma en route to a 1,017-yard season with 9 receiving touchdowns for the year, both of which were single-season career highs. I don't think he's that great of a blocker. His strength is his biggest issue, which can pop up and press with jams and reroutes. Because of how Tennessee used him, he'll need to expand his route tree. He's more used as a vertical threat, but that won't be a problem in my opinion, because with all those physical gifts, you know, I'd like to see him more creative after the catch as well. Now, Carnell Tate, he is my number 3 guy. With Tate coming out this year, he projects to continue the strong line of Buckeyes wide receivers who enter the NFL in the first round of the draft over the last few years, joining the likes of Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and of course, Emeka Egbuka. Tate is just over 6'2", weighs in at 192 pounds, has an NFL level frame he can continue to fill out, and most importantly, I think he's one of the best route runners in this class, from his stems to how fluid he is at sinking his hips and getting out of his breaks. He knows how to win at the top of his route and is just so nuanced, using his jab, steps, head fakes, and really good body control to also sell his routes. His footwork is very good from his release to through his routes and in open space. He can beat man with his route running or uses high level intelligence to create against off man and zone looks. He's got some good, you know, he's got some of the best hands in this class, I think. You know, always using them to catch away from his body consistently. He had 0 drops on 66 targets in 2025. What's scary is what I mentioned earlier. He has an NFL frame. He can continue to fill that out. And he's already so strong at the catch point with 12 contested catches on 14 contested targets in 2025. Imagine what he'll be as he further develops the strength of his body. He offers you a wide catch radius, and Tate is also a very good blocker on tape, I think. Now, he isn't, you know, listen, he is, he doesn't have top end speed or acceleration. So he's got to rely on, you know, his route running to stretch vertically or beat you deep. He isn't uber explosive after the catch. Physical press corners, they can have success getting physical with jams and reroutes because his frame, that length, it's great, but he's still lanky. He needs to bulk up a lot more. But I think once he has size, man, you know, listen, does he have top end speed? No, but he can find a way to beat you over the top, and he's a competitor. Man, I see the fascination with Tate. He is a first round grade for me. Him, Brazell, and my next two are, I have first round grades on, and I do like what Cardinal Tate brings to the table. Now, Makai Lemon, listen, turned a lot of heads with his awkward media availabilities at the combine, but the fact he's one of the most explosive players of this class is what should really be turning heads. And I've also been assured that NFL teams don't share the same sentiments about his personality as social media does, and he's viewed as someone who eats, sleeps, and breathes the game of football. Lemon is just over 5'11", 191 pounds, and was clocked with a 4.53 40 at the combine. But he's one of those cases of a guy who looks faster and more explosive on film than the testing showed, especially at the top of his routes where he consistently separates with that burst he possesses. And he also had over 500 yards after the catch in 2025. He finished with 1,156 yards, 11 touchdowns, and was the 2025 Biletnikoff winner as the nation's top wide receiver. He's also so agile to can throttle down and decelerate on a dime without wasting any movements. I love the quickness and overall twitch he displays on film. Really good route runner, sharp in and out of his breaks with crisp footwork to match. Runs an expanded route tree with comebacks, digs, deep outs. Projects best in the slaughter as a Z. Runs hard and tough, which results in him breaking tackles. He's a really good contact, balanced runner, which also makes him hard to bring down for defenders. And, Lemon doesn't just drop the ball. With only 2 drops in 2025 and 4 in 3 years, he's got reliable hands. He also offers some return or upside on special teams. And as you'll see through some of these highlights, he makes catches through traffic. Obviously, size isn't ideal from his arm length to his height and frame size. Press and physical corners may be a cause for concern for him at the next level. He's explosive in short areas and space, but he just isn't an elite athlete that can consistently stretch a defense. And obviously, he's not going to have a wide catch radius to write home about. But, man, listen, he is a fantastic player. I love everything about Makai Lemon. He is a physical competitor. He just shows up on every down. This is a guy who he could be a top end 2, a guy who fights his way to become a gritty number 1 in the league. That's what he's just about. He's a good player. Jordan Tyson is my number 1. And, I'm not a doctor, nor do I possess a crystal ball. So I'm not able to predict the future. So I just have the film to go off of. And when you look at the traits, the size, the length, the production, the talent, overall package, Jordan Tyson to me is the unquestioned wide receiver 1. When you take all of those things into account, putting his injury history to the side. I wish he tested at the combine because from the first step of his release through his stems of his routes to how he gets out of his breaks, he looks explosive and twitchy. Love his body control and ability to sell routes with jab steps, stutters, double moves, body, head fakes, and he can even use hezzy steps on his release to separate. 6'2", 203, can also beat you over the top, especially if you don't get physical with him. And man, as explosive as he is, the strides are very long too. So he can stack a DB in a flash. He can play anywhere from an X to a Z. It's out of the slot as a flanker. He's also the best ball tracker of this wide receiver class, in my opinion. High level receiver too that understands leverage and how to utilize it to his advantage. Exploits soft spots in zone. Had a 1.6 drop rate in 2025. I love that. Willing to get his hands dirty as a blocker in the run game, and he plays with a really high competitive motor. 3 things stand out to me with Tyson. Firstly, the injuries dating back to high school are consistent and extensive enough that I understand why people can't look past them. And on film, I wish he was a little bit more creative after the catch. You'll see the occasional spin move or whatever to get free, but he has a career broken tackle rate below 10%. I think it's like 8.2. He also needs to fill out that frame because he needs to be stronger to take on press on the next level. He needs to be stronger at the catch point, especially when he's fighting for contested catches, in my opinion. But really, other than those things, I don't see much of an issue, right? Those are really my only concerns with his game. Other than that, man, wide receiver 1, I don't care what anyone tries to tell me. Wide receiver 1 all day. I'm a really, really big fan of what he brings to the table. Jordan Tyson, I've said this. I think if he didn't have the injury history, he wouldn't get past 5 the Giants. And if he did get past the Giants, I don't think he'd get past the Browns at 6. I feel it's not only his injury history, but it's exhaustion. 2 guys I was really high on. We saw this. People forget there was a lot of draft exhaustion on Tet McMillan last year. Remember all the talk of him dropping out of the top 10? I was like, y'all people are crazy. Look at how dominant he was as a rookie. Same thing happened to Drake London. I was high on both of these guys, very high, and people got draft exhaustion on them and just looking for reasons to pick on them. So Tyson's injuries, they open it up. But when you look past the injuries, really, other than his functional strength, and being a little bit more creative after the catch, what do you got? So, listen, ladies and gentlemen, smash that like button, subscribe if you are new. It really goes a long way at helping the channel out. Really goes a long way, especially on these type of videos. So please do me that favor. We're going to be live this week. We got a lot coming your way, and we got another big board coming for you this week, one every weekend leading up until the draft. So get ready for it, all right? So I will catch each and every one of you on the next one. Until then, you don't know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. Will the Dolphins find Waddle's replacement in the draft? Let me know below. And give me your list. Who are your top receivers in this draft? Let me know down below. Appreciate y'all. And I'll check y'all on the next one. Fins up, everyone.